Hey, this is Gary with Jolly Dolly, and today I'm going to show you how to service the swivel bearings on these Power Pro motorized dollies. Okay, tools you'll need to complete this job include a large flathead screwdriver, some type of hammer, preferably a dead blow, an 1 1/16 deep socket with a ratchet, a wooden block, something to install the grease cap with, either a 46mm socket or a dedicated grease cap installation tool. You'll need a replacement grease seal. If you're replacing the bearings, you'll need replacement bearings. If you're reusing the bearings, you'll need some brake parts cleaner and some type of drain pan. And then optionally, a piece of pipe or rod about 30 to 40 inches long. If you're going to reuse your existing bearings, you'll need to repack them with grease. For that, we recommend this red grease, but any general purpose grease is good enough. Oh, and you definitely want a pair of disposable gloves because this job gets messy. The first step is going to be to remove this grease cap, and we're going to do that with a flathead screwdriver and put it between the grease cap and the bearing housing, and we're going to tap on it with a hammer just to get a little bit of separation there. Then we're going to take the screwdriver and start twisting it and work your way around until the bearing cap will just pop off. The next step is going to be to remove this lock nut. Now, instead of holding this, I like to take a piece of pipe or rod and put it through here. That'll act as kind of like a cheater bar, so to speak, and it's going to hold this steady. So you're going to remove this lock nut using a 1 1/16 inch socket. It's got to be a deep socket. We're going to put that on here and just start turning counterclockwise. Since this is a lock nut, it's going to give resistance the entire way. When you feel the resistance fade away, that means the lock nut is about to come off. So you can switch to hand loosen by then and make sure you're holding the yoke so this doesn't fall. Now you're going to grab the yoke and pull it straight down. You may have to wiggle a little bit and it's going to come right out. So I'm going to stick my finger in here and retrieve all of this. It's going to be kind of greasy, but you should have a bearing. This is a flat washer and these are 2 disc washers. We want to inspect the bearing to see if there's wear on these rollers, see if any of them are broken or popped out of place. Then what we can do, we can pull these washers off and we can put this bearing back in here. Now we can rotate it with our fingers to make sure that it rotates smoothly, that it has no hang-ups, it doesn't make any noise. If it does any of those things, then there's a good chance the bearing's compromised and will have to be replaced. Now on the underside, you have a grease seal that's blocking you from getting to the bearing. We're going to have to remove that. Now, before you do this, make sure that you have an extra grease seal because you will destroy this in the process. We're going to put a big flathead screwdriver and kind of pry on it. You can also knock on it. When you finally knock this grease seal out, the bearing may fall out. There's the bearing, same bearing that was on top. Now we can inspect this bearing and do the same thing to make sure that it's not compromised. So once you've got everything taken apart, you make sure you have your 2 bearings, your flat washer, your 2 disc washers, your busted grease seal, which has to be replaced, your lock nut, and then your grease cap. We want to clean all the grease off these bearings, and we're going to do that using brake parts cleaner. This stuff has a pretty powerful spray, and you just want to kind of agitate a little bit and then actually use the spray to kind of blast all this grease out of there. Once the bearing's clean, this is a good time to inspect it again, check the rollers for damage, make sure everything looks good before you decide to reuse this. You're going to be reusing these bearings. You're going to need to repack them with grease. Now for that, you definitely want some gloves. And the way we do that, we put a nice big glob of grease in one hand, and the other hand we hold our bearing. We're going to take the bearing and rake it through the grease over and over and over. What we're trying to do is push the grease from this side all the way through to this side, completely filling the cavity with these rollers in there. So we're just going to keep doing that over and over and over. And you can actually check on this side. If you keep it clean enough, you'll see that grease will start to ooze through the other side. And that's when you know you've got that section packed. Then you can rotate the bearing a little bit and just keep going. Keep raking that grease until it oozes out the other side, just like that. And once you've completed all the way around and you're sure that cavity is completely filled, then you just go ahead and coat everything in grease, and then you're pretty much done at that point. All right, now it's time to put the bearings back in. Now you can see here I've flipped the dolly forward and lean it on the workbench. That's for better access to the bottom here, because it's going to be difficult to get the grease seal in place without doing that. All right, so we're going to take our bearing and we're going to put it into the bottom here. We have to make sure that this taper needs to go like this. So the smallest part goes on the bottom, and that's going to go in there like that. Next, we're going to get our grease seal, and this is very important. You need to take a greasy finger and completely saturate the rubber part of this seal with grease. Now we're going to take it and place it, making sure this flat part is up. We're going to place it right there. Then we're going to take a block of wood, and we're going to put it on top of here. We're going to hammer it down. You have to do this very carefully and make sure that the seal is actually going to seat in there correctly. If you get one edge that's up too high, you can get that lip caught on here and it'll destroy the seal. So take your time, check every few hits. Once it's going in, you can go ahead and drive it home. And when you're done, the seal should be flush with this rim right here. Now we're going to stand the dolly back up so we can work on the top side of the bearing housing. Now we're going to take our top bearing and put it in the same way, making sure that it tapers like this. If you're unsure, you can look at the bearing race in there and you'll see that it has a taper and you're just following that. All right, now you're going to go ahead and put in your flat washer. Now you're going to take your disc washers, and if you take a look at them, they're shaped like this. So you want to take the two disc washers and meet them together like this. And I don't know if you can see that, but that is the correct way for them to go like that. And those go on top of the flat washer. Now take your yoke and make sure that it still has this spacer on the bottom. This is very important that stays on there. If there was any washers or anything like that on here, those would be additional spacers, and you'd want to leave all that on there. We're going to take the yoke and take the bolt part and go up through the bottom. We're going to put our fingers here to make sure it doesn't pop out all of these washers, and we're just going to wiggle it until we get it to come all the way through out the other side. Then we're going to take our lock nut. We're going to make sure that the nylon part is facing up and that the flat part right here is going to be facing down. And we're going to go ahead and put that finger tight. It won't go on far. Once it gets to the nylon, you won't be able to finger tighten it anymore. Now we're going to take our 1 1/16 deep socket and we're going to tighten this. As we tighten this, we want to make sure that spacer I showed you that's on here is being guided into the grease seal hole and not crushing the grease seal. And as we get a little bit tighter and tighter, we want to keep checking this and making sure that it's going on properly. We also don't want to over tighten this. So perfectly tight is where you have freedom of movement, but it won't bounce up and down and it doesn't make any noise. So if we've succeeded and this is all put together correctly and tightened correctly, we should have a very smooth movement here. We should be able to go all the way around and feel no hesitation. It should also be free to swing like this. If it sticks like this, that's too tight. You need to back off just a little bit. You should go ahead and test drive the dolly and just make sure that this operates well. Also, you want to kind of bounce it around a little bit, kind of slam it down on the wheels just a little bit, because sometimes that will actually settle the pieces in here, and then you'll have to retighten the nut. Once you're sure you have everything the way you want it, you can go ahead and put your grease cap back on. If you're using the existing cap, it should go on pretty easy. You may even be able to knock it in like that. If you're replacing it with a new grease cap, it's going to take a little bit more hammering to get it fully seated, but you don't want to hammer directly on the grease cap in that case because you will dent it. You want to use something like an oversized socket, or we may include a tool with your kit that you can use to hammer on and to seat the grease cap. That's all for this video. If you need any more help or guidance, go to thejollydolly.com/support or message our Facebook page. Thanks and have a jolly day.